Hi, it's Evelyn Aka. Thank you so much for joining me. We just decided to do an impromptu live so that we could talk about the US election and potential implications and impacts to Canadian immigration law. It's going to be interesting around what could happen if we get an election win by President Trump, or if we get an election win by Vice President Kamala Harris. So I thought we would talk about it today and just see some things for you to think about in terms of what that could mean for you if you've been looking at Canada as a possible option for immigration, as a place to go. So let's get into all the nitty-gritty. I've been following this election so closely. I don't know why. It's just such an interesting social science project for me. Every day I'm watching CNN and all the other news media to see what it is that is happening every day. And so we know some of their policies and how they may impact you. If you are a Canadian, for instance, looking to move to the United States based on President Trump's feedback and his sharing of his policies, it will look likely much harder for Canadians to move to the United States. So we're watching to see what the changes will be, but as we keep hearing about all the border controls, they're planning on building the wall at the southern border. And I know that he's also made mention of building a wall at the northern border. So we're not sure exactly what that would mean, but I feel like Canadians need to be thinking now about the possibilities for them to move to the States. Will it be harder? When President Trump was in before as president, he did make immigration laws a little more rigorous, and there were limitations on the numbers of people that could go down, and even the ideas of who could become a green card holder. Because of President Trump, he had made the movement from, let's say, L1A to green card for a small, medium-sized business much more difficult. They wanted to see layers and layers of executives and managers and department heads under you before you would qualify for green card. So I still tell my clients to this day, because of the changes that President Trump made, it means that getting to green card is not going to be nearly as easy or simple as it used to be. It's going to be more complicated. And it's also based on how big your business is and how many layers of people you have. In addition, the fees went up considerably for immigration applications with President Trump. And so again, we might consider that might be a new outcome if he is become the new president, will be increased fees for government processing, further delays, more limits on those that will qualify for green card or work permits, and more of a stricter review of all applications. The benefit for Canadians is because he still did sign NAFTA when he was president and renewed it and extended it, there were no significant changes for Canadians for processing at the port of entry. The changes that were significant were for those that were being processed inside the US after you got your work permit. So after you got your TN or your L1 visa at the port of entry, or even your E through the consulate in Canada, then what happens? The green card process was definitely more challenging, and some companies did not qualify because they didn't grow as big and as broadly as they needed to reflect that executive professional category to get that green card. So I want you to think about this. If you're interested in moving to the States, we should probably give us a call sooner than later, because we don't know what the changes will be come January if President Trump becomes the new president. Another thing to think about is if you want to go down for personal visits, vacation, are there going to be any changes to your eligibility? I don't believe there will be, but you also need to consider that as a possibility, especially if you have any criminality or anything that makes you inadmissible. If you do, you may want to start your visa waiver application now, because again, these changes are made at the policy level and they could really impact you when it comes to your application to be reviewed. They may not change the regulations, but they may change the way that the policies are interpreted to become more restrictive and making it harder and harder and harder for people to enter for both personal, especially if you need a visa waiver, or for business purposes. And you've heard he's been talking about increasing tariffs against all countries, which would include Canada. So if you're in industry and energy and lumber and mining and anything that they would consider to be competing with in agriculture, in food, in meats, you need to be thinking about what this would mean for you if tariffs are increased. What will happen to your market share in the United States if you no longer have the freedom to do business and instead there are tariffs that are impacting your ability to sell to the United States because he's going to have a more restrictive US first focus. So that's the Trump world. Let's talk about if the Harris wins and becomes president, what we're going to see. A lot of her focus still continues to be on helping small business, Americans, investing, childcare, medical, those things I don't think are going to impact Canadians as much. We haven't heard from her a restrictive, focus for her platform yet. We don't know what it'll look like. I'm interested to see if she's going to even move back some of the policies that Biden kept in place to make it less restrictive for immigration to the United States for Canadians and those doing business. If we're going to go back to a pre-Trump green card eligibility process, that would be really great because there are many people who do business and invest and want to move to the States from Canada, but they're going to be struggling with how to become a green card holder. And it will take a very long time. I also wonder if with Harris, if there'll be a speeding up of the process for K-1 visas, which is the fiancé visas, and spousal sponsorships, so that the delays are much shorter at the consulate. Right now, it's a year or longer, and we're hoping that with her and maybe an infusion of revenue, understanding the importance of immigrants, her family being immigrants back in the day as well. Maybe there'll be some more focus on bringing the highly skilled STEM, entrepreneur investments, startup visa type of investments to the US to grow the economy, which is what she's focused on. Let's talk about what it means for Americans. We've been hearing from a lot of Americans who are interested in moving to Canada over the last year and a half, 2 years, I would say. And most of that has been as a result of worrying about the Trump government, if they were to be put in place, what it means for people, for women, especially trans people, gay and lesbian people, people that support the LGBT community, and et cetera. And so many of them have been looking to Canada as a bit of a haven, just in case to have an option and a backup. So for Canadians, for Americans wanting to come to Canada, we're seeing a narrowing as well because our government in Canada is getting ready for an election. There's no doubt about it. The level of changes we've seen in Canada in the last 4 to 5 months have been incredible. Major changes to the study permit program, to the postgraduate work permit program after you go to school, and to the labor market impact assessment program for those who are working here under LMIAs. And then, of course, to the intercompany transfer. So up until recently, you needed to be able to set up a business because you had a business, and then you could come and transfer. We did a number of transfers, people who wanted to be here from Houston, from Florida, from all over, Colorado. The changes are quite significant. Now you must have a multinational company, which means that not just operating in the US, you need to also be operating in another country in addition to the US. And so that is one of the major changes. So now we're focusing our clients on entrepreneur options because the intercompany transfer may not work if you're not, let's say, based in Mexico and the US, and you want to come to Canada. That would qualify still under the multinational corporation intercompany transfer. But if you only operate in one country, the US, you're not going to be eligible for the intercompany transfer options as of November of this year. So many changes have occurred because the government is also trying to insulate themselves from a little bit of criticism that would come if they were to become, to go against the current conservatives in Canada who are focused on immigration and basically blaming immigrants right now for economic problems, for housing problems, for unemployment, and they've become the scapegoat for the Conservative Party. So the Liberals here are also trying to hedge their bets and close some of the doors and some of the loopholes to immigration so that they can say, hey, look at all the changes we've made that have improved the process, and we're closing the door. We're limiting our number of permanent residents quite significantly, which is affecting those people that are already here. We're limiting the LMIA process for low skilled, and you can't qualify unless you're in a low unemployment province, and we're making the LMIA high stream work permit process even have to pay 20% above what the prevailing wage was before. So these are significant changes, and it's very political. I don't think many people understand the political nature of immigration. And I want to be able to express to you that you need to be keeping an eye out on the news, watch the news, keep an eye out on our newsletters, follow us, all of our blogs, because whenever we get new information, we want to share it with you, and you need to know before you start a process. Right now, the files we had that were intercompany transfers, we're now having to review them all and go back to the clients and say, unfortunately, you've chosen a province that you no longer qualify for, or you don't have a multinational company anymore, which means we can't get you that work permit. It's been just quite devastating. And we're now moving our clients to entrepreneur options or even school at the master's level. It's changing everybody's lives just like that. So if you'd like to learn more about what your options are for immigration, please do reach out to us. We're all watching very closely what's going to happen down south on November 4th. I'm sure I'll be reporting back. And the main message I want to share today is, please, if you are an American citizen and you can vote, whether you're in Canada, whether you're an international expat and you're an American, make sure you vote. Make sure you get in your vote. Make sure your vote counts and your voice counts. And if you're an American watching this, please make sure you vote. You know, it's more important that you have a say in what you want than anything else. And you can't really say you contributed or participated if you don't vote. Then you can't complain about what the outcome is. Looking forward to catching up with you again. Hopefully we'll do another live post-election, and we'll see what the outcome will be, as well as what the possible immigration outcomes will be. Thanks so much for joining us on the ACA Business Immigration Law live stream. Reach out if you have any immigration